aim of the monies that have been distributed across the country. But gentlemen, allow us to get to the topic of conversation today. And the topic of conversation or debate, be sure to grab all the other papers which we haven't had time to go through. Because of time, Taifa Leo has a top story on UDA kuadhibu wabunge wakaidi. These were sentiments by Cleopas Malala in Nakuru. The Business Daily speaks about how the bank dollar holdings are on the rise and to record 966.4 billion shillings. That is on the Business Daily, with other stories. Infrastructure bonds shine in secondary market, and Kenya Power blames fake forex rate for 23 billion shillings loss. Then there is the Star, Karua walkout looms as Raila team divided. And this then will also be part of our conversation on NADCO, because it all has everything to do with what came from the National Dialogue Committee. And at this point, even as he gets mic'd, the Honorable Geoffrey Ruku gets in studio quite late, but he shall be telling us what happened. But we're getting the main topic. And Mwenje, the National Dialogue Committee gave us its report last week, I think about 10 days ago.
Nice.
There are a raft of recommendations. And the reason why we titled our discussion as Beating the Referendums is that some of the proposals must be effected through a referendum. You are a lawyer. And you also attended the PG by Azimio, in which Raila Odinga said that we must have a referendum. And even before you respond, maybe we need to start with that upsound, Jonte, from Raila Odinga when he held that parliamentary group meeting by members of Azimio la Umoja One Kenya Alliance, coalition rather.
To create the office of the leader of opposition, or to formalize the office of the Prime Cabinet Secretary, the people of Kenya have to have their say by way of a referendum. Besides, it is a constitutional requirement that such significant restructuring of government must go through a referendum to avoid the mischief that may be played by some people going to court.
To avoid mischief that may be played by some people going to court. That is what Raila Odinga says is a reason for a referendum. But let me start this with a very critical question. We saw this process through BBI. And from where I sit, perhaps you will explain to us. You are a leader in the National Assembly from Azimio. This NADCO process appears similar, same script to BBI. BBI was stopped by the courts by one major argument that the president cannot initiate a popular initiative. NADCO is an initiative of the president and Azimio leader Raila Odinga. So is this an exercise in futility?
Thank you very much. First of all, the way I like to look at it, NADCO is just BBI reloaded. So it's more or less the same thing. But how we amend the Constitution, Article 255 of our Constitution tells us how we shall amend the Constitution. There are two ways of going about it. Article 256 talks of parliamentary initiative. That means we go to Parliament, we'll get a certain number to support the amendment, and then we start going through the process. Eventually, we must culminate in 2/3 in the National Assembly, 2/3 in the Senate, and that's parliamentary initiative. Popular initiative is what we had started with BBI. BBI was a popular initiative where we went round, collected signatures and all that. That is the process that we went with. So in this case, it's a little bit different, but we started in the same manner with BBI. So the question is, are we going by popular initiative or are we going by parliamentary initiative? Now, it seems the government side wants us to go through parliamentary process. That means now that the report has been done, you know, that's a separate process. Now come to Parliament, here is the report, then we start. We look at the specific laws that we want to amend in Parliament. So my gut feeling is that we are going to go through the parliamentary process and we start amending. Having said that, Article 255 gives us threshold. On certain matters, we must do a referendum. And to me, what the former Prime Minister is talking about, I have to agree with him. Because we're changing the structure of government. by introducing these two positions. We're going, we probably will have to bring the leader of the opposition into parliament. Probably the prime minister would be a member of parliament as well. You know, we are still yet to sit down and look at these structures the way they are supposed to be. This changes a bit how the structure and function of parliament will be. That means if we don't go to a referendum, I also believe that somebody somewhere will just run to court and stop this entire process, even if we pass it in parliament. Remember, BBI was passed by both houses, only to be stopped where at the point when you want to be stopped a bit later on by the courts. It is important, if we're going to do such serious amendments to this constitution of ours and create these two positions, and more importantly, we as Azimio did not ask for the position of leader of opposition, the position of prime cabinet secretary. It came from the Kenya Kwanza side. They're the ones who've insisted on it. And we feel if we don't give these two positions to the people and allow the people to have their say, to have their input on the same, there will always be an issue of legitimacy of how you were given this position by members of parliament who sat and were told you need to vote this way. So we must go out so that there'll be a lot of civic education that will need to be out there so that we can explain to the people why are we holding a referendum.
It doesn't take us away from the fact, and I come to you, Basil, it doesn't take us away from the fact that this has been initiated by the president and Raila Odinga. So it takes it, basing on the BBI judgment, takes it completely away from what the Constitution envisions of what a popular initiative is. So are we walking through the same route? Are we risking to see the report and whatever or other amendments we may want to implement stopped by the courts?
Well, just like my brother has already indicated, of course, if we don't do through what is being provided by the Constitution, some people will go through the courts, they'll stop the process. Of course, personally, I would say this is not, of course, the timing is not right because Kenyans now, they are extremely burdened by the cost of living. So what we would do, of course, we want these key positions, since they came from Kenya Kwanza, to be entrenched in the Constitution, to manage the element of win takes its all. Remember, after elections, the president goes, and then the deputy, or the second after the election outcome has nowhere to go. And that is what has been bringing all these chaos, acrimonies we have been seeing after elections. So to manage that, I think that's why Kenya Kwanza introduced or proposed we have these two positions. A referendum is the best way, as provided for by Article 252, Part 2A, which talks of referendum to engage citizens to have a say in the process. What I was saying, the referendum could a little bit be pushed forward because as we speak today, Kenyans are really suffering. And if we continue, we bring the element of referendum, we are likely to even set now an election mood. Remember, we just came from election 1 year and 3 months. So if we start immediately now, what will happen? It will be now a period of election.
Isn't that what Azimio would want, politically speaking?
I don't think that is a position of Azimio, though I'm not speaking for Azimio.
So what
I'm
was
speaking
discussed?
as a member of parliament.
So what did you discuss in the PG? Because your party leader said in that press conference, I attended it, that we need to have a referendum. You had a closed door meeting before you invited the press. You must have discussed on when possibly to have this referendum. So what was discussed?
I don't want to to give out informations that were discussed in a closed door meeting. Remember, when you have a closed door meetings, the oath of secrecy sets in. But definitely, the deliberation was more on the report, and some of the outcome, which is in the public domain, was to have the opposition of the official opposition leader in the Constitution. And what we are doing now is to follow the law. The law says when such decisions, critical decisions of such magnitude are being passed, we need to hold a referendum as per Article 255, Part 2A. So that is what the Azimio leader was telling Kenyans and informing members of parliament.
Thank
because
you.
that is a procedure. But what I was saying, I don't think currently we could maybe push it forward to make sure at least Kenyans now, because many Kenyans are struggling. Remember, January is coming. Very few Kenyans will be able to afford school fees because the situation is unbearable to so many Kenyans.
Thank you. We need, Kore, President William Ruto, immediately after the report came out, a day or 2 days, actually a day later in church, said, nimeona hiyo mapendekezo na ile iko hapo tutatimiza. Part of this kutimiza includes we can't run away from it because of Article 255 on basic structure or not. We need to go back to the people on includes a referendum. What is the position of Kenya Kwanza, and when should this referendum be held?
I think, yeah, thank you very much. First of all, let me say, when the president said tutatimiza, I think I agree with him fully. One thing you should know is, maybe we'll discuss it later, this whole thing was a win-win situation for both the Kenya Kwanza and Azimio. And I must say, the question around, whether we will go to referendum on these offices to be created. Remember, we started this process in Parliament. It was the process was enacted as a legislation in Parliament, and the committee was formed. We approved it in Parliament, and once they have done their report, they will bring it back to Parliament. So we'll do this thing through the parliamentary process. And although my colleagues have insisted on the fact that this is a recommendation from the Kenya Kwanza and not from Azimio, looking at it from that perspective, it has also turned out to be the less controversial issue that the teams discussed there. It's like they all agreed on it. So if we have agreed on it,
they equally wanted it.
They equally want it. So if we agree on it, and we know the context in which we are as a country, the burden the Kenyans are having as a country, why should we push them through the popular initiative where we do a referendum?
It says that. It is
the
Article 255.
Constitution say we can do it like Honorable Mwenje said in two ways. We can do it through the parliamentary process, and we can do it through the. So my take is we can do it through the parliamentary process, perfectly legally acceptable. But if it is insisted that it must be done through referendum, given the circumstances we have today, then we can do it together with the 2027 elections. Instead of burdening Kenyans in between here, maybe we can do it with the 2027 elections so that we have one cost for both the election and the referendum.
Roku, it's the first time you're speaking, so I'll give you a couple of minutes more. And it is about the referendum. President William Ruto has said tutatimiza whatever is in that report, says whatever needs to go to Parliament will go to Parliament. And Azimio has also taken a side to, support whatever is said. In fact, I heard in that meeting that, in fact, this was a statement by Minority Leader Opiyo Wandayi that there will be no cherry picking when this particular recommendation comes to Parliament. So they pass it as is. When should this referendum be held?
Thank you. One, I belong to the school of thought of those members of Parliament who don't support this report. I 100% don't support the report because there are so many lazy recommendations.
Lazy recommendations?
Yes, lazy recommendations. It is true we support the president 100%, and we are not going to give the president the space to get into the problems which the former president Uhuru Kenyatta got into when they joined hands with Raila Odinga. This is a case which is likely to happen, but we are going to fight extremely hard to ensure William Samoei Ruto makes the right decisions for the sake of his government, Kenya Kwanza government, and for the sake of the people of the Republic of Kenya. Why am I saying that this recommendation is full, this report is full of lazy recommendation? My brother, you realize that when you're addressing the cost of living, you don't do it in a superficial manner. You do it in a serious way. Tell me, why is it that Kenya is one of the countries in the region with the highest cost of power? It is because of cartels which are there, state capture which is there, as far as supply of very essential commodities on the power, like transformers, like conductors, like meters. We don't manufacture some of these products. But if you look at the prices which are the installation prices of this product here in Kenya, vis-a-vis other countries, vis-a-vis where these products are manufactured, you just cry. And therefore, this cost is pushed down to the consumer who are Kenyans. We have independent power producers who sells power to Kenya Power at a very high prices. Why? Because they have power purchase agreement with government which cannot be revoked of many years, 20 years, 30 years. So if we are talking about cost of living, then let's see recommendations on how we can bring down the cost of power so that we can get manufacturers in our country. Once we have manufacturers in our country setting up shops here, then it means our young people who are jobless, many of them, millions of them, they will be able to get employment. We want to see concrete recommendations from that report, not just mere superficial recommendation to ensure it create positions for the leader of opposition.
Allow me to cut you short there. Allow me to cut you short there, so we also don't mislead the viewers. Creating positions for the leader of opposition might be misleading. Yeah. Because, you know, one, you don't apply the law retrogressively. If this were to pass today, it would not be implemented immediately. At least that's what I assume. Secondly, it is a proposal, like Alia said, from the Kenya Kwanza side. So how are we creating positions for the leader of opposition?
This is politics, my brother. Probably Kenya Kwanza came up with that recommendation so that we can come up with up in arms to say this is not going to happen. One, so in other words, it is politics. It is politics. One, we have what we may call, the referendum. Do you think Kenya Kwanza members of parliament, me included, will support the president to ensure that there's a referendum in the Republic of Kenya? It is not going to happen. We have more important things to deal with to ensure this economy is back on the right track.
How about
not going for campaigns and referendum?
How about, before we get to referendum, this report comes to parliament this week. This particular week, yes, it comes to parliament, and most of the things, or some of the things, will need approval from parliament. Because you said you don't support the report. Will you support any aspect of the report that may need simple parliamentary
The only aspect of the report which you will support is the creation of IBC, the commissioners, whatever the formula you want to come up with, that is okay. Let Kenya have an IBC. But you know, the report is recommending about IBC, which is a hardware, but it's not recommending with clarity about the software. How many Azimio members of parliament have forwarded an election amendment, amendment of Election Act 2011? None. But they are here shouting how elections are stolen every single day, but they don't want to solve that problem. If you want to solve the problem of the elections in this country, amend Election Act of 2011, Section 24, and also Section 44, so that we can ensure there is automation process of the election. I have an amendment of Election Act 2011 to automate the election process of the Republic of Kenya, so that we can be able to have a different definition of what a ballot paper is.
Basil, you want to
so that we, no, Basil will not say anything. Basil will not say anything, my brother. Let me finish my point. Basil will not say anything. They are very happy. They are very happy with the recommendation that Raila Odinga may come to parliament. I can assure you it is not going to happen. Kenyans are not ready for that. Kenyans want about economic revival of this country, job creation of young people. And let me tell you, President William Ruto has a clear plan on how to achieve that. But that clear plan is not about referendum, it's not about creation of jobs, creation of position of leader of opposition, and it's not about creation of Senate Oversight Fund. Already we have too many funds in the Republic of Kenya.
So thank you.
That's why I'm saying these are very lazy recommendations.
And imagine, you will not.
We want to create another. These fellows are supporting creating another fund to give the Senate money to move around. Do you think that is something Kenyans can support?
Let's allow them to respond.
President William Ruto is not going to make the mistake which his predecessor Uhuru Kenyatta made in holding hands with
President William Ruto. I'm coming to you, Basil. President William Ruto has committed himself to support the recommendations of NADCO. So when you say he will not make that mistake. I mean, that's, we wait and see. But Basil, you have a burning feedback.
You see, I think Mheshimiwa Ruku is confirming what Kenya Kwanza has been doing all along. I would call it a long con. By this I mean they have been playing games with the Kenyans and with Azimio.
Not with Kenya.
Because they have not been serious. They have not been serious.
Let's allow
remember, if you look at history, allow me to talk. I gave
no. You can't continue that kind of...
They are playing games.
As a ruling coalition,
they are playing games.
Okay, allow me.
They are playing games.
We will have to mute your mics to start again from ground zero.
Yes, I'm trying.
So Ruku, we are coming to you. Let's allow Basil to make his point.
Yes, I'm telling him he's confirming what some of us, we have been thinking about it over the time. Because the government, it's clear from what Honorable Ruku is saying, they have not been serious and committed to the discussions going on bipartisan talks. And we saw it immediately when the talks started. The price of fuel started going up. Could start and economics, the functionality of the government should continue. But now what is revealing is they have been playing games with us. Number two,
allow me
what he's talking about, those positions.
You know, the premises of the dialogue was completely wrong. Because it is because of someone who has refused to accept the result of elections year in, year out. And causing violent and armed demonstration against the Constitution of the Republic of Kenya, Article 37. And then, listen, the premises
allow us to correct him.
What took people to the streets? Let's head one by one. What took people to the streets?
What took people to the street is not the high cost of living. What took people to the street is because of the support, the support base of Raila Odinga, and mobilizing them after they lost the election. They stayed quiet for 5 months. Why is it, if it is about the cost of living, why is it that they did not go to the streets immediately?
All right.
They stayed quiet. They stayed quiet for 5 months.
Can I explain to you?
Let's have some order. Let's have some order.
Before I allow my brother
let's have some order, Basil, and take this from this point. Whereas, because we're going to Mwenje, and then we take a break and come and start with Kore. But whereas you're saying that Kenya Kwanza has been playing games.
Yes.
This is clearly something that Azimio did not find out today. You knew all along.
Correct.
Then the question from us journalists to you has always been, why didn't you bolt out? Why did you have to stay all through the process to even sign the document and now say that you're going to support it, yet you acknowledge having known that these were games being played?
You see, as Azimio, we are honorable members and we respect what we tell Kenyans. Remember, the bipartisan talks were initiated to calm down the political temperatures that were on the rise in the country. And as Azimio, we gave them time. But there were signals that the government maybe they are not serious about this thing. And today, our brother Honorable Ruku has confirmed that. He has said it was politics. They were not serious about the talks and even the proposal they were making. And we even question, remember, before the talks proceeded, there were times where they were suspended because even the members who are nominated by Kenya Kwanza, they were not meeting the balance. You remember they nominated Ichungwa, and from Azimio side we said, honestly, they should have gave us someone of the same level with His Excellency Kalonzo Musyoka. But we said all in all, since that is the best team they could have, let's proceed with the talks.
Fair enough.
That is exactly what happened. But remember, as Kenyans, because we have to respect the decision of the Kenyans, the Kenyan people, that is why we hold on to the talks.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Mwenje.
You know, this issue of the report, and it's interesting how Rocco has raised it, that he doesn't agree with the report because it doesn't cover issues such as cost of living and all these things. Remember, we said in our PG that this report is incomplete. In fact, we have our own members who are struggling to support this report because that was the fundamental issue. The issue of cost of living is what took us to the streets. Why did we wait for 5 months? We waited because at the point when the election happened, And a few months after, the cost of living was fine, but it just kept going up gradually. So we had to. The people are the ones who went to the streets. More importantly, this report, you know, I like the way he's saying they're playing politics. We too are good at playing politics in Azimio. In fact, we've been at this game longer than them, so we understand it better. They've proposed an issue and we've told them, fine, can we take it to a referendum? They are afraid to go back to the people. Why are you afraid to go back to the people? To approve a document that you are the ones who've approved it. Secondly, of course, there's an issue. It will take us some time because we have to reconstitute. We have to reconstitute the IEBC. We have to reconstitute the IEBC before we go for a referendum. So we're a long way off. The issues that have just been raised here, that you're playing with the opposition, you're playing with all these people, is the reason why, for us, some of us supporting this report, we have also cherry-picked. We believe the office of the Registrar of Political Parties cannot exist in its current form. We need a better system where we nominate. So we've cherry-picked some of the things. That one doesn't need a referendum. We can take that. If they don't agree and they have refused to talk about the issue of cost of living, I find it strange that Rogo can come here and say that this report is bad because it doesn't have this, and yet they're the ones who opposed it.
And when we come back, I want to hold Ruku and Kore to account. But first of all, we need to take a break. But when we come back, when Ruku says that the report does not have the cost of living, again, the question on cost of living is who is it that is supposed to cure? Because who is it that passed the Finance Act? It is members of Parliament. That you will be responding to when we come back from this break. You're watching M Live here on NTV. All right, welcome back to M Live here on NTV, and the discussion is just getting heated up. The Member of Parliament, Geoffrey Ruko, says he will not support any recommendation from NADCO, and it is interesting. And I'll start with you, Kore. When you hear your coalition mates, because you're not UDA, you are UDM, right?
Yeah.
But he is your coalition mate, say that he is not going to support recommendations in the document. I'm sure there are positives within the document.
Yes.
Then what... Yes, we acknowledge that there has not been a parliamentary group meeting from Kenya Kwanza, especially on NADCO. Azimio has already done its report. What is your take when it brings this kind of divisions amongst yourself?
I think what I'm seeing is not division. What I'm seeing is a very healthy debate. And you know we are a democracy. People will share their views and argue their points. And like the president always says, any good idea gives way to a better idea. So if Naburuku has a better idea of what we are discussing, he's free to air them, and Kenyans will be the arbiter. They will know where the but personally speaking, as a member of the Kenya Kwanza coalition, I agree with my president that we have to implement the recommendations of NADCO. I agree with my majority leader who agrees with His Excellency Honorable Raila Odinga on the fact that the report is imperfect, is unfinished, but it's a beginning. It's not the end. It's a beginning. It's actually the building blocks of where we need to build on so that we can achieve. I come from the peace building background, and I know when you have a conflict, whether it's a political conflict or it's a violence or whatever, and you've brought people together, you know, you have to temper, you know, how to make sure there is an agreement of sorts. Sometimes you don't agree, but most cases you work for a give and take situation, a win-win situation. Personally, I find the report as a win-win situation. There are a number of things that Kenya Kwanza recommended, like for example the establishment of those offices, which the NADCO has recommended needs to be done. We have refused to discuss the question of cost of living because that is the mandate of the government as it was elected on a manifesto that it needs to fulfill. So if we agree the cost of living to be discussed in a dialogue conference like this, then it takes away the responsibility of the government in dealing with the cost of living as it promised in its manifesto to Kenyans. Whether we fail or we succeed, we need to be judged on the manifesto we agreed with the Kenyans. And that manifesto cannot be subjected to a dialogue committee which has got bipartisan team from Azimio, and from Azimio had its own as his own manifesto. Kenya Kwanza has its own manifesto, and I agree with the members of the NADCO committee from the Kenya Kwanza side who said the cost of living needs not be discussed in the National Dialogue Committee. So, but there are so many other good things that have come out. For example, the question around the electoral justice. These recommendations doesn't stop somebody like Honorable Ruku or any other member from taking any other amendments to the IBC Act or the Election Act in Parliament. This one doesn't stop us from performing our legislative role in Parliament at all. Like on Wednesday, we will be discussing members from Mandera. We've agreed, Major Bashir from Mandera North, to move an amendment to the IBC Act so that, you see, we've had the demise of our colleague in Banisa 6 months ago. And people in Banisa have remained unrepresented for the last 6 months because IB is not constituted. You see how suffering is happening to many Kenyans. So we want to recommend an amendment to the IBC Act so that the CEO, even when there is no commission, like, you see, this is a situation which was not envisaged. That so
I saw the amendment.
Yeah, so that the CEO can be able to gazette the election and can even run
a by-election.
Run by the by-election.
All right.
So, and more important, the NADCO has also recommended the question of transfer of all devolved functions. This is a very important issue, especially for some of us who come from northern Kenya, where we believe devolution is the independence, you know, for us, and the establishment of the World Fund, the increase of the shareable
revenue.
Shareable resources from 15% to 20%. These are very good recommendations that we cannot just brush away as useless. And
say they are lazy recommendations. But yes. let me come to you, Roko. When you say that this report, and I insinuated this question as you were taking the break, when you say that this report has not addressed the cost of living, question would be, as a member of parliament, then how did you expect the report to address the cost of living? Yet you were in parliament when the Finance Act came to parliament. It is the Finance Act currently that has occasioned some of the painful, or should I say, the taxes that Kenyans are paying. How would the dialogue team address this, yet you have the solution in Parliament?
Thank you. One, and please, you have to protect me from these two guys, because I know that my brother here has done his presentation or his discussion quiet. I know I'll be dejected within within 1 minute. Okay. Now, first of all, the premises of these talks is wrong, because when one forms a government, please allow whoever has formed the government to conduct the government affairs, and after 5 years, Kenyans will make a judgment on whether the affairs of government have been run properly or not. This has not been the case with the leader of opposition or leader of Azimio from the time of Kibaki, from the time of Moi, all the way to now. And that is the culture, the type of politics which we need to kill from our political space completely. Number two, so the premises of going to Bomas of Kenya was wrong. And we give benefit of doubt, because nobody who is a custodian of experience, knowledge, and expertise. We give benefit of doubt that let's see whether this team will be able to come up with proper recommendations which cannot be done on the floor of the House. But my brother, the thing is, all these things which are mentioned on that report, all of them, none that cannot be implemented on the floor of the House. So the question is, why is it, you know, in Parliament, the standing orders of Parliament says that the leader of minority and the leader of majority, whether if they have any bill of any amendment of the Act, is given priority, and also they are given huge amount of time to debate, to say whatever they want to say. I'm expecting that some of these things which leader of minority one day, he was sitting there in Bomas, he could have forwarded to the floor of the House. We discussed them, we passed them. All the necessary amendments which need to be done in Parliament can be done by the leader of minority. You don't need a dialogue team to sit down. I'll give you an example. Why I'm talking about the cost of living? Yes, but the cost of living is not only occasioned by the taxes. The high cost of power, this power, has been there, not this year, not last year, not the previous year. It has been there even for the last 10 years when Uhuru was in power. So it's not about the taxes which were introduced by the finance bill. So we need to address some of these basics and get them right. When you are talking about the fuel levy, that you want to scrap the fuel levy, do you know these members of parliament, all of these members of parliament seated here, they use the fuel levy to do maintenance of roads across the country. And if you want to know that, and assuming there's no the kind of lanes which we have or which we're having at the moment, if you want to go to our neighbors, a country like Uganda, and see the kind of roads which are there in the city, because they don't factor in the fuel levy. So I don't think whether there's any member of parliament who will support the reduction of fuel levy, which ensures there's maintenance of roads, rural roads, across, including highways, across the Republic of Kenya. So we must be more innovative and more creative to really get it right in terms of microeconomics. What is this can change, can ensure, one, when President William Ruto said about the subsidies, he said we are not going to subsidize consumption, which is extremely a very a fundamental economic policy, very important. That you better subsidize production but not consumption, so that you can get things right. And that's why we are seeing the product which are being produced within the agricultural sector at the moment, whether it is beans, whether it is whatever is being produced, it has increased because, and the cost of doing that has come down because of subsidizing production.
Fair enough.
Now, we need to get it right. We are not seeing this thing being addressed properly in this report. We are talking about remove the subsidy or the fuel levy to take
VAT
care of
16 to 8.
to take care of the cost of living. About the VAT.
It was a proposal from Azimio, much as it was not considered.
Yeah, about the VAT. It is because
very brief, because we also need to go to them.
Remember the kind of arrangement which was there before, that the subsidy of 80%, the oil marketers were going to the coffers of the Republic of Kenya, of the people of Kenya, and get the difference of 8%. Okay, so do we want to continue giving money to oil marketers, or do we need to use that money to take care of our day-to-day activities of government? So, my
Fair
brother,
enough.
I think for me, what I'm saying, we will fight very hard not to go to any referendum. We will fight very hard to ensure IBC is reconstituted, and not only reconstituting IBC, we will ensure there is proper amendment of Election Act, which will ensure nobody in the Republic of Kenya who will go back saying that the elections were rigged, because it's not possible that MCA's elections were okay, MP's election were okay.
Fair enough.
These other elections were okay, but when they come to presidency election, that's where the problem is. All these guys were phony.
Ruku, a yes or no question. President William Ruto says tutatimiza what is in the report. Will you support the contents of the report or not?
We will support the content of the report where the president says if it is about IBC, we will support. But about the issues of referendum, that we will not support.
Usually pick. Mwenje, there is a general feeling that much as there is a call for a referendum, that this is not the time. But I covered the PG that you guys had, and let me get a card from under the table. And one, Azimio said that, this was not said in the press conference, but it was said in the meeting, that you have no business teaching Kenya Kwanza how to maintain the cost of living. That was said. In fact, it is also your hope that Kenya Kwanza does not contain the cost of living so that you have something to campaign against. That was said in the meeting, not in the press.
How did you know?
I'm a journalist.
We also know.
I am a journalist. Mwenze.
You know, first of all, that paints us in very bad light. You know, Azimio, we don't want people to suffer.
Yeah.
That's
But you
one of
hope
the
Kenya
things.
Kwanza fails.
You see,
I covered
they are
the
failing. We're not even hoping. They are already failing. And when they fail, you see the trouble that a member of parliament or a supporter of Azimio suffers the same way as the supporter of Kenya Kwanza. So we have the same problem. What we decided is that, you know, we couldn't have, we cannot get a bipartisan approach on the floor of the House. That never happens. So that is why we had to go out there. It's why we made cost of living part of the discussion there. We made it part of the discussion, not because it is not our duty. And we said it, yes. It is not our job to help them govern the country. But we were trying to tell them, if you look at some of these things that you guys have passed, if we bring them to the floor of the House, on the floor, first of all, there's no opposition in this country. We have a majority and a minority. That's it. That is how our constitution is set up. They have the majority. So when we go on the floor of the House, everything that they do passes. Rocco is here busy telling you the way he'll oppose the report. He'll be called to a PG here at State House. He'll come singing the song of that they've been told and just vote yes, yes, yes. You wait and see on the day. So what we've been trying to do is try and get them to listen, to reason, and tell them, help us. Let us, and actually we were trying to help them govern, but we've decided we're not going to bother with that. It is their duty. If they don't want to listen to the people, for us, we'll go back to the people. And that's what we've done. We've decided we're going to pick the report, some of the things, and cherry pick some of the issues that are there, and go back to the people.
What do you expect to get from the people? I mean, they put you in position of leadership. You have the mandate. What do you expect to gain from the people?
You see, the issue of cost of living is an issue that touches on the people. Now, we've done a report here. We've tried our level best to try and make it part of the conversation. They've refused it, and they've rejected it to make it part of the conversation, the issue of cost of living. We, as the minority side, have a duty to go back to the people and explain to them, this is what happened. We raised our issues. We even gave them options. Can you remove this? Can you remove this? Can you adjust this? Can we do this, something here? They've rejected it, and they've made it quite clear. So we are left with no other place. Because on the floor of the House, we can't defeat, we cannot reverse these changes. They'll be bringing in more taxes, and we can't reverse it. So for us, we can only go back to the people and tell them. The other issue that I wanted to just respond to was the issue of the election of 2022. Part of this report has, the Kenya Kwanza side have agreed that we do an audit, because there are some issues with this election, and it's important before we go to the next election. How did we end up with Cherera 4 here? These people are giving us these results. You all remember, you were there. You remember that for 2 days we really didn't even know who was going to win this election. So we have to change that. We have to, and we have to audit that election so that the new IBC that comes in, we're able to tell them, guys, these were the mistakes. The country was at, there was a lot of tension, even at Bomas when Chebukati called both sides to attend. We still did not know who was going to win the election. Look at the US. In the US, you, the media, call even areas and say, this person has won here, this person has won here. That's what we want. We want something clear.
A very brief question. When would you rather we have the referendum?
To me, I think as soon as we have the IEBC, once we've set up an IEBC and done the relevant reforms that need to be done, I think we can be ready to do a referendum going into perhaps end of next year, maybe sometime
before 2027.
I think it needs to be there before. We need to separate these issues: the issue of a referendum and the issue of the election for 2027. So I don't think they need to be done at the same time. I think we need to separate it, but we don't have an IBC yet. We've not even passed these things in Parliament, so we are still a long way off.
But we cannot ignore the fact that a referendum is in the offing because of the recommendations. Yes. Basil, when would you rather have the referendum? You spoke about the time not being right now. Is it before 2027? And if it is, if you agree with Mwenje, then does it hold or gain more weight to the fact that Azimio wants to go back to the people because they feel a referendum will be a vote of no confidence to Kenya Kwanza?
Well, first, as I indicated, currently Kenyans are suffering. So the best time to have a referendum could be around 2025, somewhere there.
Still before 2027 elections?
Yes, because you can't mix the two. You can't mix general elections and a referendum. The two cannot be tied together. But of course, you need to have the right infrastructure for a referendum. And that is where we need IBC to be in place. So the most immediate measure to be done is to recruit IBC. We have them in office, and then from there now they can be able to undertake a referendum around 2025 within that period. I also wanted to differ with my friend when he said the Azimio should have allowed the government to continue doing business. We did not interfere with the business of the government. What we have been doing is to tell the government, your people are suffering. We can't sit and watch when the ship is sinking. Remember, when you are doing chemistry, there is something called chemical change and physical change. There are irreversible occasions. For example, people have died because of cost of living. Those lives cannot be recovered. People, young people have not been able to attain higher level of learning because of poverty and inability to pay school fees. That cannot be reversed. These are chemical change, and we cannot sit and watch. We have a duty to tell the government the way you are pursuing, or the way the government, the move the government or the path is taking people in the wrong direction. And that's what we have been saying. Remember when the Finance Act was brought to Parliament, myself, I opposed. And I gave my personal amendments, which no one listened to. I told them you cannot tax, particularly if you talk of affordable housing. Instead of imposing a compulsory levy, you are extorting money from Kenyans, and no one knows which house is going to own. I said, reduce taxation on ingredients of construction, and the Kenyans will be able to build their houses the way they want.
Thank you.
Among other amendments that I made, Ruku was among the first people to oppose that. And here he is saying that we are going to do, or he's talking of cost of living. How do you talk of cost of living when you had a chance to oppose a punitive financial act, and he never did it?
At least he has said that the Finance Act
it's
is
like
not
you
the
are
cost of
stopping
every
a
problem.
vehicle that has already moved.
Yes.
Correct. Azimio says it's going to the people because of the cost of living. And this going to the people will only boil the people. It will only set the country in a campaign period, I think, because we are foreseeing a referendum. What do you take from that commitment of going to the people?
I think they are within their rights to go to the people. We are a democracy, as I told you. And we will not stop, nobody can stop Azimio from going to talk to the people. They have that right. But I tell you, this process which we are discussing, we started it in Parliament. And we will end it in Parliament. I don't agree that there is going to be a referendum of any sorts on this matter, because even the context, the circumstances under which we are now, doesn't allow, if you're honest with each other, doesn't allow any referendum to happen now. And I will tell my colleague, my friends, let's just get prepared, because this report is coming to Parliament this week.
It's actually coming this week.
Yeah, get prepared for that debate on the floor of the House. Any amendments or any recommendations that you may have to change it at the floor of the House, and get also prepared to accept it when we pass it in Parliament as it is. This report is good. And as I said earlier, it's a win-win situation. Azimio recommended a number of things, including electoral justice, including the constitution of the question around fidelity to the law on political parties, and they got what they wanted in the recommendations. Kenya Kwanza recommended a number of things. We didn't get all what we wanted. We got a number of things that we wanted, including establishment of and the entrenchment in the constitution of some of those oversight institutions that we have, like NGCDF and NGGov and what have you. So it's a good report. And we'll debate it on the floor of the House, and that's a house of debate, and that's what we are elected to do. And we will agree to disagree on some points, but at the end of the day, this is a process. We entrenched in the process of parliamentary process, and we'll end it in that process of
parliamentary process.
Parliamentary
Geoffrey Ruku, you'll give us your comment, then we'll do a round of closing comments for each of us. So if you take the position that you don't support the report, then what would you rather is a way forward for those members of parliament who believe in your line of thought?
We believe that the National Assembly and of course the floor of the Senate can be able to take care of issues which Kenyans are raising, and that's exactly why we were elected by Kenyans to ensure, and even the law, everything, all the instruments are available to ensure some of these things are able to be done. But the problem which we have is that some people believe that they cannot be able to do anything when they have not been sanctioned by their leader, failing to know that everyone was elected independently, and you have a constitution mandate to do as per what the constitution says, to registrate and to ensure that registration which you have come up with, of course, is effected when it becomes law. You know, it is very insincere for us to sit here and say there's no money for fees when all of us here have CDF, and out of the CDF we have 35%, maximum of that 5% of that money should go to school payment. And if you have a problem with that 5%, you can request the board to increase that 5%. So when Honorable Basir keep on saying they cannot be able to pay fees, he should be more innovative on how his constituents should be able to get more bursaries, like I've done in my constituency. So when someone is, and I keep on using this word, lazy, please don't blame others. Okay?
and that is the point. That is the point to that is the point to bring this, because let's now get into your 10 seconds. John, can we do 10 seconds each of closing comments? 10 seconds each, yes.
The president has been able to address the macroeconomics of this country, holding the economy back on track. That's why we have been able to see growth of 5.4% when other economies are registering stagnated economic growth. Most of countries in the world at the moment are registering stagnated economic growth, when we, Kenya economy, has registered 5.4%. That is because of the policies and the program which the president and his government have been able to embroil. And it is true, they are working.
They are working.
In a short while, we'll be having ease of day-to-day life of Kenyans.
Correct.
I think the question of dealing with the cost of living should be left to the government. The government is on top of this. The president has done very well, like my colleague has said. He's put in place the spanner in the works, you know, the framework in which we will achieve what we have set ourselves to achieve as a country. We may not achieve whatever we have promised Kenyans 100%. No government has ever done that. But I believe when the shove comes to push and when dust settles, we'll be in a better position than we inherited this country from.
Basil, 10 seconds.
One, I want to tell my brother Ruku, he needs to speak the truth. What is not telling the Kenyans is, currently school fees are being reviewed upward. Even capitation for primary schools was not received 100%. So if bursary for universities, the school fees is now we are talking of 100,000 plus. How much money can you give a single student? Of course, you can't give more than.
We're not supposed to get back to
even
debate.
If you give 20,000, a poor family, and most of the family now they are needy because of increased cost of living.
Fair enough.
So what I'm saying is, let's speak the truth. Let's not politicize issues for the sake of politics. Remember, the people who voted for us, very few can afford to put a meal on the table. Well taken. And many Kenyans are suffering. So let's talk of how we are, how as elected leaders, we are going to do to make sure life is bearable for the people who voted us, not to politicize issues for the sake of politics.
To me, I just have two parting points. If we're going to amend the constitution, let us do it in the right manner. This is the first time it will be amended. If a referendum is needed, people should not be afraid to go to the people. Second, the second issue is the issue of cost of living. As Azimio, we will continue engaging the people, we will give alternatives where we think we can change. More importantly, we are asking the government, listen to the people. And if you don't listen to the people, then the people will punish you.
Then the people will punish you. Thank you very much, Mark Mwenje, the Deputy Minority Whip in the National Assembly, as well as Member of Parliament. Embakasi West constituency. We also have the Honorable Robert Basil, Member of Parliament, Yatta constituency. The two of them are from Azimio, that is Jubilee Party, as well as Wiper Party. Then we also have the Honorable Abdul Kore, Member of Parliament, Mandera South, elected under UDM, as well as the Honorable Geoffrey Ruku, Member of Parliament, Mbere North constituency, elected under the UDA party and DP party. And gentlemen, thank you very much for your time. That's where we bring to a close. Next time we will have this conversation, and Ruku, make sure you keep time next time when you have this conversation. But that is it here at AM Live. My name is Ibrahim Karanja. Be sure to catch the rest of our programming here on NTV. This is where we give you the best of journalism in the country.